before or have heard from someone else, you can sign up to our newsletter with Lydia or me, and you'll find out more about our future events, and also get some discounts to some of our wine tastings and beer tastings we've started doing. We are setting up and opening from about February next year the Calcium Print Club, which is behind here, at about 7:30ish. If anyone wants to go and have a look at it, I would love to go and show you. It's going to predominantly do etchings, which is a bit like this one, which is acid etching on zinc plate. We will be doing other things as well, but that's what I've focused on so far. And we've got a course by a master printmaker starting 10th of February for 5 days, which will tell you everything you need to know about, well, doing one like this, which is mine, and then hopefully you can get a lot better than this. Now, this is Christabel's event. She's made all of these beautiful artworks around us, and she's here to tell us a little bit more about her practice and how she does what she does.
Yay! Hello everyone, thank you so much for coming this evening. It's lovely to see so many of you familiar and unfamiliar. So I also want to say a huge thank you to Alex and Lydia for being so welcoming. My now fiance, Matt, and I moved to London a year ago, and this was obviously my first destination, and I was really welcomed, and it's been so lovely to be invited to have a solo show. So I've called this exhibition Time and Place because my practice often explores being surrounded by a location. And the key things that I want to sort of take in is to draw from places, think about colour, and sort of heightened senses that it makes me feel when I'm out. I started off really always loving to do art, and my family are very creative. My mother is an artist herself. And so I did an art foundation down in Cornwall at the University of Falmouth, where I loved it because it was a little bubble, which I didn't know very well. I'd spent a lot of time during holidays and things in France, so it was nice to discover a new part of the UK. And I could go swimming, which I loved, and being outside, lots of walks. I loved it so much that I decided to stay there and do my BA in Fine Arts, where I was really interested in collecting information through drawing out on either seafront or finding little areas in town to draw people, and sort of kind of like a fly on the wall, just observing but not really being sort of taking a step back, but seeing what's happening around. And after that, I was fortunate to get a place at the Royal Drawing School in London to do a drawing year. So I was really obsessed with drawing, and I wanted to learn more about how to draw and the different ways of drawing, and how it can take you to other mediums and skills such as printmaking or drawing from imagination, from observation, still life, all sorts. And that also meant that I learnt to be a tutor, teaching children and secondary school children on the Young Artist programme through the drawing school, where I teach in different locations around London, and the British Museum and the National Gallery. So it was really eye-opening, and also I loved being involved in teaching and education. So that kind of got me thinking about how I could teach what I love, and colour is something that I have really kind of found a new language to make work from. But before I worked with colour, I mean, I hadn't used colour at all until I went to the drawing school. So the whole foundation and BA. So really, having done lots of art and taught a bit, but I found colour really hard. I didn't know how to mix it. Always didn't work for me. So I only worked in black and white until I went to the drawing school, where they asked us to follow an artist. So I decided to follow Matisse because he's from the north of France and my family are from the north of France. And as a child we used to go to the Le Cateau, which is where Matisse has his museum. And I loved his paintings because he'd use colour to kind of hold it all together and in a block of colour. So it's really through following and researching, finding out about him, that he helped me think of how I could step into the world of colour. So I started drawing with oil pastels, but just one colour, to build up. And now I've exploded into lots of colours. So yeah, and I guess the first important piece that I made was of a scene of Bangladesh, where I went and lived there for 3 months with volunteering overseas, which is a programme that used to run, I don't know if it's still going, but it's a government funded programme, and they take 18 to 25-year-olds. So after Falmouth I did that, and it was really eye-opening because it was a completely different world really. When I came back, I wanted to paint something that had a significance, something that was important to me, and so I painted it bright yellow. So I made a big drawing using oil pastels in bright yellow and called it Remember Me Bangladesh, and it was more what the colour made me feel, because the environment was quite different and there was a lot of different ways of living, but it was the feeling of being there, which was to me joyous and full of people who were learning. I learned so much from them. So I made a bright yellow piece and had it exhibited at Christie's auction house. Wow. And yeah, so that was a really important part of moving into the world of colour. And also this love of discovering and working in locations that are unfamiliar but also close to home. So I've been quite lucky to have outdoor studios, working on artist residencies, and teaching both in India or working on commission for clients. I've been to Kenya, and just having that outdoor space and being there gives you that sense of urgency, which I really like to work on. But also what I use, so even though it's colours, it's what I'm working with is materials that you probably draw more than paint. So I although they become paintings, they're using oil pastel, paint pens, colouring pencils, and I layer it on. So when I work outside, I'm a bit like a snail or a beetle, and I take the whole studio with me. I pack up a little granny trolley full of colouring pencils, felt tips, spray paint, everything, and I want to just play and see what happens on location at the time. So all of these have been made out in the field, let's say, apart from a few on the side, because I do also work in my studio, so collecting, drawing from my sketchbook and drawing on location to then continue building up these new places inspired by real places. So yeah, and most recently I finished at doing a course at City and Guilds Art School in London, where I did a part-time MA, because I think although I've been very fortunate to do a lot of education and learning, now working as a teacher part-time and my practice, there's always more to discover, and it's really the starting point of this kind of journey into colour. and where it takes me next. And Sitting Guilds has helped me sort of explore printmaking, and which I'm very excited to get a go with here at the studio, the printmaking, and just carry on understanding or learning how colour is used, because it's such a vast world, and how to the different sort of emotional reaction to the colour, and also cultural references, historical, factual theories. So yeah, that's what I do mostly. If anyone has any questions.
What's the next? What are you going to do next?
Next, well, so I at the moment I run drawing with colour courses for adults at West Dean College, and I've been teaching in schools and doing workshops with a company called Sunspace Art, which connects science and arts together to go and work do workshops in schools all over the country. And I've also applied for a residency in Antigua, teaching secondary school children for 6 weeks, which will start in January. So I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, continuing. I love this balance of teaching and art, because it also keeps you on your toes and questions your own practice, and helps understand or learn for children or adults. So.
What's your favourite piece on the walls today?
Ooh.
And why?
Well, so a lot of these.
It's like choosing your favourite child.
A lot of the pieces have been made on residency, but what I've loved about living in Caversham is to spend a bit of time exploring local areas. And so this one here is of Maple Durham, which is such a, if you've been before or haven't, you should go, because it's a really lovely place up the road. So yeah.
Where did you stand when you did that picture?
I stood in the field, so I walked
I was
along
going to say,
that
because I've
path.
been there lots of times, and I'm trying to work out when.
I like to try and find a hidden place. I quite like to sort of nestle somewhere that no one can see me. So I went up off the path a bit and sat under the
Yes,
tree.
it
Does,
I'll
does
do
being
one
chased
myself.
by a cow improve your art, or the other way around?
Yeah, so yeah, the walking and the finding a place is really important. And
You-
then gathering it.
You make a big point of particular colours of paper for your artwork. So how do you choose? Or do you have a huge pad of paper you pull along in your snail train, or how's it come about? The like Shropshire Hills has bright orange.
Yeah, the colour of the background is really important to how, again, it goes back to that Matisse learning how Henri Matisse would use a colour to hold it. And so, you know, when it's bright red or a brown is warmer, and it just felt more, you know, cosy to me, and that I could then layer up more autumnal colours, and I wanted it to feel quite representative of what I was seeing. So, but it's not always the case. Sometimes it's just, you know, like this one was made in Shropshire, and that bright red, it's actually quite Christmassy because with the snow on it. So it's more, you wouldn't necessarily know that it's Shropshire. It could be anywhere. So, but it's those energetic marks that maybe I was really cold. So it's the feelings, I guess, and colours do, depending on what other colour is next to it too, it changes completely. So the I say Christmassy because the red and the white feel really familiar in terms of Christmas, or these colours, the greens and purples. Building up a colour palette, I feel, helps me build up the composition. And so the coloured paper helps. I tend to bring 10 different colours with me, but then if there isn't a colour that I feel is right, then I paint the paper. So yeah, there's a few on the back there. and two down there that are painted paper. So the white background is what we're quite used to, but it feels quite icy if you go directly on white. So if you have a background colour, it changes how you see a picture.
What sort of paper have you got? What kind of paper? Are you
This is just card,
oh,
so it's
is it?
card, and then I use cartridge paper, or I mean, I quite like to be quite experimental and see what, you know, when you work on canvas, it's really different to working on wood or paper. And paper, I think, is an amazing material to work on because it's quite flexible. You can it can take on a lot of materials. Whereas canvas, it is, but you need to prepare it, and it's more technical boundaries that you have to kind of.
Yeah, I thought it was pastel paper. You know, the pastel.
Yeah,
I
no,
thought
this
the-
is just card, card.
Yeah.
Card. Coloured card. Anyone have any other questions?
You mentioned Matisse as an influence. Is there anyone else or anyone you're into maybe now?
Ooh.
For work?
Well, not so much an artist, but I looked at different authors for my dissertation, and the dissertation was emotional connection through colour and form in conversations with. So I'd take a writer with me, and we'd discuss colour. So it was a kind of, and I used Alice Madicott. I don't know if you've heard of her. Lauren Elkin and Rebecca Solnit, and they were really influential to like thinking about colour and being on locations.
So those authors on location.
Well, they didn't in real life. It was
right.
but
Metaphorically
yeah,
speaking.
metaphorically
Were you
speaking,
volunteering?
I make
Yeah, we're
life
an
quite
author.
complicated. Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
What was your most difficult one to paint?
I think when I'm working outside in the field, it feels very expressive, and it's quite a quick process because you're limited to your
It's always
environment.
like one sitting. you do.
So all of these are done on location quite quickly, or however much, like, you know, I can stay there. Sometimes, depending on, you know, if there's a storm, then you have to pack everything up, and so it's quite exciting, but it can also go wrong really quickly. The large one in the window that you can't see unless you go outside, that sort of combines that love of kind of mapping and taking different stories or things from the sketchbook and building up another place, another one. They take a lot longer. So I'd say that's the most sort of challenging in ways, but they're almost like I don't know, but they take much more time. Does that answer your question? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These paintings there are very different.
Yes, yeah, no, thank you for, because that's exactly the four. There's a tree one that was done outside, but the other four they were also made in the studio. So drawing and being in a place is really important, but then making work at home or in the studio is it's slightly different because you're working from memory and you're building up the place, and often it has a different viewpoint. and
It kind of seems a bit more imaginative, as in creative rather than photographic in a way.
So those are they're more built up.
Yeah.
They're more, but they are influenced by a place. So I guess I have two ways of working.
You don't ever take a photograph and use that as a memory?
No, although there's nothing wrong with that, and people use photographs all the time. I take photos, but I don't work from the photos because I feel it's already it sort of flattens my images. It doesn't make me feel sort of three-dimensional. If that makes sense. So it's useful for building up something, but I'd like to work from sketchbooks.
So would it take you a day to do one, or 2 days, or 3 days, or 10 hours, or what?
It depends, but some of them, you know, when I went to Maple Durham, I took all my equipment with me, and we walked up the hill. My dad came and took some photos of me, which was nice. And I sat there and worked for maybe 3 or 4 hours.
Did he feed you?
So you know, you've got an idea of the colours before you actually start.
Not well. I have a think before, but a lot of it comes instinctively because the colours don't necessarily. They're not exact representation of the
Never
place.
is. You can't really do the exact, can you?
But it's more the like feeling of being there. So a mark might come up. Like, you know, there were bits of brightness or that.
We started with the colour of the paper. That already determined
Well, I had to
something.
choose
You
it.
chose that. You pulled that out of your pack, and something guided you to that, I guess, from the scene in front of you. I don't know.
But it's mostly it's like drawing in a sketchbook, but with knowing more about your composition. It feels more. It's almost like a performance.
Because I was saying, you know, I've been out there by the wheel. I was about 2 hours. It was freezing in December.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get this boat at the sign, but I didn't get the colours. I went away and did the colours after. But you do it at the time.
I do it because again that was that the colours they have a feeling when you work with them, and if I'm at home then I'm in my home, so it changes. It becomes a different place. But that's just how I see it. But I guess it depends on each individual. But I think it's like it is a bit like these are more performative, being there and just saying, right,
It is.
this is the time, I've got to do it. So they're quick, 2, 3, 4
I
hours.
took seven tapes of going to the house, the mansion house. I lost my phone at one occasion when that bad storm was on. I never got it back. I think it was probably 11 times I went there trying to get their colours, right, and centre this picture on the hill, because it isn't actually level, when I had to space it to make it. Yeah, but you know, it's not easy with photos.
Yeah.
You have to change it sometimes
But
to
also,
centre it.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but a photo is a static image. It's
Yeah.
done in seconds.
Yeah.
But when you're out there and the lights are changing all the time,
Yeah,
or you
yeah,
hear
that's
something,
right.
or someone walks past, or so it's the atmosphere that's
Yeah.
really different.
I also noticed that if it was done with a photo, I think the perspective would be different. Because I've noticed that when you draw from outside, it seems to me that you see all of these trees, all of these flowers, all of everything, and you want to put all of it in. But then, if you do it with a photo, you look and you think, well, where are the trees gone, or something is not there. It's just somehow flattened and very, like you say, totally static. And I did some drawing in Brittany, and when the tide comes in, you can't believe how quickly it comes in. So I can see straight away that they're not done from a photo.
Yeah. Whereas those other ones, or the big one outside, they're almost cartoony or sort of illustrative of a place. So they are quite different. But still, colour is the one thing.
So is your basic landscapes, you know, or that you because you like the nature?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of
I
the
do.
sort of
And
so-
being on my
nature,
own
yeah.
with the nature,
Right,
or you know, there are sitting in coffee shop,
Yeah.
or but I'm doing something
that you like,
independently.
that you want.
But just watching and seeing the world go past. All quiet.
Can I just say, so clearly you guys are all well on form with a great grilling on Christabel. Perhaps we'd just say thank you, Christabel, for.
Thank you.
There's quite a lot of food, so please, if everybody could make sure they've eaten everything.